Ella Powell started releasing country pop songs in 2020 and immediately impressed with her thoughtful lyrics and unforgettable melodies. Last year, she released her EP, The End of the Beginning. This year, she has a new song, Passersby. Sorry, Passerby. I added an S in there. It is Passerby. Hello, Ella.
Hi Sophie, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I didn't know it was passerby. For some reason, my brain just went, to passers-by. But I'm not going to talk about the song straight up. I'm actually going to start by asking you about the Toyota Star Maker Grand Final because that's what's happened since the last time we spoke. And I'm wondering why you decided to enter that competition.
Yeah, I think kind of at the end or midway through last year, I had gotten to the point, I guess because I've been, in the industry for quite a while, where I felt like I was outgrowing what I was doing. And, I'm in my early 20s now, so I felt like I had kind of matured a little bit and I was ready for a change. And was kind of thinking, all right, well, how do I want to kind of go about this? So I was like, let's enter Star Maker, it's the perfect platform to launch that kind of new brand.
Hmm.
So that was kind of my thought process behind it. And also, like, the opportunities were amazing, and I met so many awesome people through it. So it was kind of a whole accumulation of things, really.
Yeah, it seems that even for the grand finalists who don't win, there is a lot that can come out of it, like meeting people. You perform at the Tamworth Country Music Festival on the main stage in Bicentennial Park. So, and it seems like there's a lot of activity that goes on.
Yeah, definitely. And in the lead up to it, there's a lot to do as well. So it's the perfect place to kind of launch that, I guess, new branding on a big scale as
Yeah.
well.
So in terms of the new branding, because obviously the EP was the end of the beginning, which was a fairly clear statement, and it did collect the singles you released to that point, and then you released the single Crossroads, and so you're talking about this new brand. So you have to enter some songs into Star Maker, from what I understand. So which songs did you go in with?
Yeah, so I went in with, oh, that's a really good question. Just trying to think. It would have been, it was so longer. It would have been Behind the Glass, definitely.
Yeah, it
Um,
would have been a year, at least a year ago that you entered, I think. Yeah.
yeah, so it would have been Behind the Glass and then Along the Way
Mhm.
and possibly Country Love. So it was the three my kind of biggest, most streamed songs at that point, I'm pretty sure.
So then, therefore, sort of changing musical gear for you, and we'll get to Passerby, which is a bit of a change of musical gear. What did you have an idea of how you wanted to shift at that point, so that going into Star Maker actually, as you said, would be a change of brand. So what were you thinking at that time?
Yeah, I think I kind of knew the image and the visuals. I kind of had all that in my head. Musically, that was something I was really still kind of working on and exploring at that point. Um, and it kind of wasn't until I started writing with my friend Ben Horsley, who produced and co-wrote that Passerby, that I kind of really found exactly kind of where I wanted to go because we wrote so many songs before we chose Passerby as the single. So I think, yeah, like to answer that question, visually, yes. And I think I was still kind of working on where I wanted to go, sonically.
Because it is definitely a big part of artistry, and it's actually had quite a long chat to Chloe Styler about it, who's an artist from Queensland, because she puts a lot of thought into her outfits and her photographs and her videos, and it can be this thing where I think we like to believe it just happens organically, but of course, no artist who's recognizable has just let it happen. Taylor Swift certainly doesn't just let it happen. There's thought into it, and when you're trying to stand out in a crowded field, as any musician is in a crowded field, right? It is a significant thing to do. So I'm curious at what point you started to think about that visual change, and if there were any influences you were looking at in particular.
Yeah, I think I've always had kind of that idea of branding as well. I think because I started so early on in my kind of life that I always kind of knew that you had to have that brand. And I was always very like maybe playful, like the pinks, the really, really traditional country kind of look
Mhm.
And then about, yeah, maybe midway through last year, I really started expanding what I was listening to. You know, I was watching a whole bunch more music videos and like stuff on like TikTok and all that. And I was looking at, you know, like Lana Del Rey, Casey Musgraves, Ash, those kind of artists that really inspired kind of where I'm at now. And then I kind of, when I made a big mood board, and that's up in my room. And I was like, okay, like this is what I'm going to do, and this, and this, and kind of then brought it all together and then started, I guess, doing the photo shoots and all that to represent it.
Yeah, and for you, of course, it made absolute sense because you started releasing music when you were still young, and you have been involved in making music from a young age very diligently. I remember when I first spoke to you, you were already writing prolifically, and I do think it's completely normal to actually hit your early 20s and think, well, hang on, I'm definitely not the person I was when I released Paper Town, for example.
Yeah, definitely. Like I really like not officially released, but I wrote and released my first song on YouTube when I was 10. Um, you know, YouTube was really popular back then. And I guess I am still very young, but because I have been doing this for so long, I kind of forget that. Like I'm only in my early years when it comes to the music industry.
Yeah, but you have always been diligent, as I've said, and I remember being impressed the first time we spoke about how passionate you were about songwriting. Now you've mentioned writing a lot of songs with Ben Horsley, so I'll ask you first how you started writing with him, because when I first spoke to you, and we've spoken a few times, you were a solo writer for quite a bit of it. So this is a shift also for you in your writing style.
Yeah, definitely. Like I still do a little bit of, you know, my own writing just solely, but I met Ben at the end of last year. I was talking to a guy called Gavin who does lots and lots of songwriting. I'm sure you've heard of him. And
Gavin Harfoot, I
yes,
guess. Yeah, yeah.
yes. And he was like, he mentioned Ben. And then when I was at Toyota Star Maker, he was there with Jade Gibson. And obviously, because I know Jade quite well, we were talking. She was like, oh, this is Ben. And then we got talking. And then he was like, let's do some writing sometime. I was like, yeah, yeah, definitely. So then about a month after, probably mid-February, that's when we started writing. And we just did a whole bunch of, yeah, we wrote quite a few songs. And the plan was just to kind of write as much as possible. And then when we felt like when I felt like there was something ready to go and a really special one, then it was time to just choose that one and go with it.
So it sounds like you gelled pretty quickly, because I would imagine in co-writes there has to be a sort of rhythm to it. Like there are some people you'll start writing with, and the rhythm of working together is just a bit off. And it sounds like with him it flowed from the start.
Yeah, I think it worked because we were both like, he gets really excited about trying new things outside of the box, you know, and that's where I went to him being like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to try something new. I want to develop something new. So I think we were both really excited about exploring something that hadn't been necessarily done before in that way.
Yeah. So you said you were waiting until there was a song that really worked. So that also means you had to be patient. And now I know that because you've done a lot of songwriting, you're probably used to being patient, but this is probably the longest gap you've had between single releases since you started if I'm reading the dates correctly. So you really had to be patient before releasing Passerby.
Definitely, and it is frustrating because I am not the most patient person. Um, but I think all the advice I've kind of been given, especially through Star Maker and, you know, just kind of last year, this year, is like, don't rush it, you know, don't rush out putting songs out just to put songs out. Like you need the quality is what is going to make you stand out. And once you've got those songs ready to go, that's when you start really like honing in on that release campaign.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that you didn't have quality before, but but it's good to listen to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, no. I definitely think, you know, everything I've released has been what I feel like high quality, and I wouldn't release something if it wasn't. But I think it's kind of, you know, that high quality in a different area, like moving into a different section of country pop that I hadn't necessarily sat in before.
Hmm. So working with Ben as a producer as well, as you said, I would imagine this is the first time you've worked together. So did you actually go in and record a few songs at the same time, or was this like the test case?
Yeah, no, this was the first one. So we just started recording Passerby, and it took a couple months because Ben lives up in Queensland, so we did it all virtually. And it went over to UK for the awesome saxophone solo. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. I'm sure you want to talk about that. And then went over to the US, and then obviously had musicians here put tracks down too. So it's kind of been like a global effort to get this song going. And then I went and produced my vocals with Jackie McCormack, who lives just down the road. So that worked really well. Then it got sent back up to Ben, and then it got sent back off for mastering. So it's been here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, and good for you too to have Jackie close by on the central coast of New South Wales. I would imagine working out of his father Rod's studio, or maybe he has his own space. I don't know.
Yeah, it was there actually, and that was the first time we had worked together before as well. So I was like, I didn't. Yeah, it's been a whole new kind of experience.
Now, you introduced the subject of the saxophone, and I did have a question about it. So, the first time I heard this song, saxophone kicks in more than halfway through, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, but it totally works. So,
Yeah.
I'm wondering at which point Ben suggested it and how you reacted to that suggestion.
Yeah, so we had a really good chat about it, and he was like, "Oh, there's this guy overseas," and it's casually John War who headlined Glastonbury with the 1975s, very casually. So he's got this friend, um, and he was like, "Look, it's a bit out there, but you know we're trying new things." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And then we listened to a bunch of reference tracks, so we got up all these tracks that play have saxophone in them, not necessarily in country, but you know, within that field, with a bit of indie, all those kind of vibes. So I had a good listen, and then I was like, you know what? Got nothing to lose. Like let's do it. And now I think that's become a really core part of myself as an artist is now incorporating these instruments that you don't necessarily hear in country music. Like you don't really hear a saxophone solo in country music, but it works and it's cool. And I've had hundreds of people ask me about that. So it like, you know, it makes people interested as well.
Yeah, that's right. So whether it was an interesting device on Ben's part, just to see what the response was, I doubt it because it had to work for the song, and it absolutely does. And it does make it. And there's also in the intro, there's some instrumentation that's a little bit different as well, but it's still very much your style. And I do think the way he's produced it and the saxophone do work with the subject matter for some reason. It sounded a bit like a song that was not retro, but evoking songs from a previous era, but then also working as contemporary. I'm not explaining it very well.
No,
Hopefully,
I get you because that was kind of the base of some of our initial ideas because I use like Lana Del Rey and Ash are kind of my biggest influences at this point, and a lot of what Ash does is also very retrospective, and it also brings in influences from the 80s and the 90s. So when we started, that was kind of an idea, and I think that's also become a bit of a core idea now as well. So I feel like this song's kind of cemented like what I am as an artist.
yeah, interesting. Lyrically, I found it intriguing because it's about the song is about feeling like life is passing you by and you're a young woman, as previously mentioned. But I do think it would be easy to say, oh, but you're young, how could you think that? But I do also think there's a lot of pressure on young people. There has probably has always been that sense of achieving young, but now there's so much more awareness of what everyone else is doing and what they're saying that they're doing. And of course, on social media, everything can look bright and shiny. So I would imagine that you are not immune to that. Like that, there's that sense of, oh, I have to get these things done by a certain age, or I haven't succeeded.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's where a lot of this song came from. Because you know, when I started, when I was like 10, I was in, you know, growing up watching that era of the Taylor Swift, the Justin Biebers, the Ariana Grandes who got found before they had even released a song and you know then got signed and then that people
Right.
you just poured money into working with them so then they could kind of grow. And I guess that idea of that compared to where I am now, even though I've had, you know, I've had a good bit of success and things are going really well, it's you always hope to be further along than what you end up being, if that makes sense. And that's kind of where Passerby came from.
Yeah, and it's also that tricky part of being in this market. Well, mind you, maybe it's the same in the United States. I don't know, but there aren't these big buckets of money in Australia coming for artists. You know, you are funding it all yourself. You're taking on all that responsibility. So yes, we do look at the Ariana Grandes and the Taylor Swifts and the Justin Biebers, and think, oh my God, amazing high-profile artists. But there was a huge amount of support to get where they are. You've had to do it yourself, and that takes a lot of dedication, patience, even though you say you're not good at it.
Yeah,
so,
maybe I'm more patient than I thought.
I'm wondering for you, like what you feel your biggest driver is as an artist, and if that has, whether that has changed actually since you started.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's always been connecting with people. Because I absolutely love the writing side of it. And I think that's kind of why I do what I do is to connect with people and to have people be like, oh, this got me through. I remember in, this is probably last year, someone messaged me being like, your paper town and behind the glass got me through some really personal things. And we had a really good conversation about what they were going through. And they were like, and, these songs really helped me support that time. And I thought, wow, like, if I can make a difference in people's lives, then that's kind of the biggest thing for me. And of course, I would love to do that on a bigger scale, and that's always going to be the goal.
Mhm.
But I think taking it back to that kind of grounding idea of connecting with people is
Yeah.
doing what I do.
There can also be a toll to that, like an energetic toll, because it's actually quite a commitment, I think, to have that relationship with your audience. So are there things that you do to not necessarily protect yourself, but to refill the well, if that makes sense?
Yeah, as in like what I do to kind of inspire myself. Is that?
Yeah, and also just manage your energy levels, because especially when you're performing live, I think sometimes it can be intense. People want things from you, they want to chat. You might not be up for it. You might be exhausted. All those sorts of things.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I definitely like, especially in live shows, I leave it all out there. And I found the more kind of band stuff I've done, I find that really energizes me once we're, off stage and, it's just kind of us and we just have a laugh, have a couple drinks, have a good chat. I find all that stuff really helps and just kind of grounding yourself and doing things like I love going for walks with my dog and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of do all those little bits and pieces when I'm not like performing.
Yeah. So how's your songwriting practice going? Are you writing as much as you ever did? Or now that you're more co-writing, are you allocating time to it more specifically?
Yeah, it's like things have changed so much in such a good way. I think I'm allocating time to it specifically, and I'm putting more, I guess, thought into the time that I am doing it. I'm making sure that, I'm in a space where I actually feel like I really want to do it and I feel energized to do it. And I think that's made a really big difference of the quality of what I've also, been producing lyrically as well. Like I feel like I'm writing lyrically some of the best stuff I've written before. So I think that quality over quantity as well also makes a big difference, is giving yourself that space to do it rather than feeling like you have to do it every single day.
And are you writing with anyone else?
Not at this point. There are a couple things locked in for the future. And I definitely want to keep branching out, and, working with new people because that's also how you learn and you get those different perspectives. And as it's not something I've done heaps of before, so it is definitely a new area for me. But I'm really loving it. Yeah.
Well, and of course you mentioned that you had done a few songs with Ben, so they're just sitting there as well, the other
They
songs.
are. They're just sitting there too. Yep. So I guess we're gonna keep writing and then see what ones we're gonna choose for the next singles and then lead into an album.
And it looked like you might have made a music video for Passerby, which is not out at the time we are speaking, but I was looking on your socials. It looked like you had filmed something.
Yeah, we've got lots of little clips and stuff, and there'll be more of that, yeah, coming out. So
And you also posted a reel of the recording process, the vocal recording process, which was really interesting because, and it was about the, oh, okay, do lead vocals, then 2 hours later do so that whole idea of time, of how much time it's going to take, and what happens in between. So I guess that's part of your job as well now, is thinking of different ways you can present the experience of making music to social media followers.
yeah, social media is a full-time job in itself. That's probably the most exhausting part, I would say, out of everything we do. That's probably the most exhausting part. But I do love when I go into the studio, just I always chuck my phone up in different places because I'm like, I'll use this later to capture kind of the experience because people like seeing that, like they like seeing what's behind the song. And that's always the stuff that I get really good responses from because people like it.
I'm very fond of saying that people love to hear about work or see work going on when it's not a job they do themselves. It's this weird, it's this thing that I really do think it's an instinctual thing in humans. They're just fascinated by other people's work.
Oh, definitely. And I find the same with people in other areas. Like I'm like, how do they do that? Like even people, authors and stuff. I just think because I guess there's a similar space in the creativity, but I think how does that process work? And I love hearing about the kind of the behind the scenes work.
Yeah. So are you playing live a bit at the moment?
I did some shows up in Gold Coast last week or week before to celebrate my single release. And I've got a little bit of a break at the moment. I'm just really concentrating. We've got kind of a lot of things behind the scenes to get ready for next year. So I'm kind of just in the rehearsing, writing phase at the moment, the social media phase, of course, and then leading into some bigger shows next year.
So are you at the point where you're actually like planning your content? So that's part of the cohesive thing of, all right, this song's going to come out this date. I need to do X, Y, Z, social media wise, leading up to it while it's out, all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, you should see my timelines and my tables and everything, like doing all the content maybe 3, 4 weeks in advance and having it mapped out day by day and where you're gonna post things. And yeah, it's a whole job. It's a big jigsaw puzzle you're trying to put together.
It is a whole job. It's also, as I'm very fond of saying, not the core competency of the musical artist. So this is a skill that you all having to learn and keep learning. It's not inconsiderable, you know. This is something that used to be quite separate to the job you're actually doing, which is making music.
Yeah, I feel like I have learned a lot of skills that you necessarily wouldn't think you need as a musician, but when you're independent, you're doing it all yourself. Like I've learned how to use Wix to create my whole website and all that kind of stuff, learned how to do merch and just everything you wouldn't really think of, but that's probably where you spend the most time.
Yeah, well, and merch too. I hadn't thought about that. Yes, it's that because that's also all right. What sort of merch? You know, I can't just have a t-shirt. I've got to have a design on it. Do I design it myself? Do I find someone else to design it? There's a lot to think about, Ella.
There is, but I am really lucky. Like even though I am independent, I've got a really good team around me. So that makes such a big difference, and it takes a big weight off.
Yeah, is that a team that you've just sort of assembled as you've met someone and you thought, oh yeah, I'd love to work with them, or is this something you specifically set out together?
Um, it's more been gradual as we've kind of, as I've kind of gone along. Like Cameron, who does all my videographer. I don't know what the word is, but we met when I released my very, very first single, Watching Over Me, like way back in the day. And he does like Guy Sebastian's and all these really big artists music videos, and he messaged me. He was like, I've seen you on the coast, like I think what you're doing is really cool, can I just shoot a music video for you because I just find it really fun? I was like, yeah, of course. And we've been great friends ever since, and he's been, he's done everything ever since in that space. And same with the lady who does my artwork. I met Sarah through my dad a good few years ago, and she's been incredible. She does all my merch designs. She does all the cover art, all the logos. Like, yeah, very lucky.
And you do have really great cover art, so that's she's obviously doing her job of
Tell
excellent.
her, yeah. I
Yeah.
send her ideas. Like, I got this piece of paper for Passerby, and I like drew a stick figure in the middle, and then like the like the title and everything. And I said this to her. I was like, all right, this is what I'm thinking. She's like, okay, we can work with that.
Well, it must be fun for you to see it come back too, to see what
Yeah.
you come up with. Yeah.
It is really fun. And same with like, the content shoot. I was like, all right, I want to set up like a living room in the middle of a field for this song. And they were like, okay, sure. And it looked way better than what I actually expected it to. So that was really cool.
Until it started to rain on you, because I saw that clip as well.
That was before we even did the shoot. We like that literally, it went on for about an hour and we were too far away from the car. We'd already set up. So I was like, we're just gonna have to brave this. And it went on for about an hour, and then the sun came out, and you wouldn't have thought, but we were bogged down. My shoes had to be chucked away. It was Devo.
Oh, that's pretty extreme, actually. Chucking up a bed. Yes, it happens. We have mud, all those sorts of things. Now, we're coming up to the time of year where people are thinking about Tamworth. So, do you have Tamworth plans?
Unfortunately, I'm actually not going in January. I am overseas.
Oh,
And
well, that's exciting.
yeah, it just all happened at the same time. So I can't go, which is really, really sad because I was, obviously really excited to go back. I've been going every year for quite a while. So I guess we'll have to wait until 2027, which is not really that far away.
It's not Ella, which makes me a little scared.
Yeah.
But it also means you will have some more new music, of course, because it sounds like you very much have plans for next year.
Yes, big plans for next year, keeping on building the momentum and kind of this new branding and see what happens.
Well, congratulations on Passerby. Great to talk to you as ever. I'm sure I'll be talking to you again. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. See ya.